back to AI Unplugged. Today we have Protik Mukhopadhyay.
That sort of stayed with me and probably helped me in my contribution visible. And especially now the day in US with the AI thing, like your core job every day in the morning, you're frustrated, you'll get burnt out. No matter how many breaks you're given, forever. So you have to find something that you like to do long term, something like that. Yeah, because you can have the best equipment, the
Clean data so the AI doesn't make stupid mistakes.
kind of, it doesn't matter what size of the company, but everybody started looking at cloud. The three big cloud providers. This way is you decouple AI from regulation. You think about regulation simply. I think financially it's not that different. I think if you like what you're doing and you're productive, I think you should stick to it. You should Shark Tank or some bullshit. What do you call? There's no next big thing because people think, and this is true in job also, right? That when I was in this company, I had this framework, I had this team, and this worked for me. I'm going to replicate the same thing in the new role, new company. So you have to eventually figure out for yourself.
Welcome back to AI Unplugged. Today we have Protik Mukhopadhyay, who's the CEO and co-founder at Datacolor AI, leading development of agentic AI solutions for enterprises. His core mission is empowering enterprise data and AI teams to achieve superior results, usually by simplifying AI adoption and maximizing value for both employees as well as their customers and all stakeholders in general. His work history involves being the president and co-founder of Standard Corporation, which was later acquired by Brilio, wherein he worked as a general manager, and now currently he's the CEO and co-founder at Datacolor AI.
Our team, hey, good to meet everybody. This is Prateek, who is part of B 2006 batch, and probably someone in the 50th percentile. Pretty average. He didn't do really well in academics, and I think what I remember is, or what I liked about the classes was I was very curious and I used to always ask why. I think that sort of stayed with me and probably helped me in my professional life down the road. And then from there, I came to US and have been in US ever since for almost 20 years now.
Okay. And like, was this always the plan from the beginning, or did it like kind of shape as you trod your journey? Ki I wanted to go get into AI and tech like this, or like was it like something that happened on the way?
See, life, man, it's all about experiments. It's all bullshit if people say they have a plan. In fact, the ability to experiment is what sort of I believe in and that led me to it. I don't plan things. Maybe there's advantage or a disadvantage in that. But definitely the plan was, all of us grew up in Mumbai, right? So when you're young, you listen to your parents. When you are a teenager, you listen to your friends. Yeah, I just followed what everybody did. I had no plan. I had no clue what I was getting into. And to me, everything an experiment.
But yeah, moving on. You have worked in like small startups to big enterprises, and everything in the middle. What would you say has been your what would you say would be your go-to organization? Would you be more comfortable in a startup-led environment, or something like a huge MNC in terms of like if you were to work there? What matches your vibe more?
See, big company is like a buffet. Okay, you have 50 dishes. Let's say you go to a Taj or a Marriott, you have a lot of options. And if you own that restaurant, there's a different approach to it. And startup to me is like a very successful, popular, where people stand in line and buying a vada pav, right? So if you look at purely from a business perspective, while the top line revenue for buffet may be higher than the vada pav center, the net business that it makes, which is net of percentage of the gross revenue, will be higher because costs are low, you are frugal, you control your destiny, and you have a brand for that one dish what you're known for, right? So I like startups because one is it brings that focus, second is you control your destiny, and the long term you also make way more money. So absolutely startups, not joining a big company where it's like feels like a buffet.
So, from what we understand, people often say that it's very easy to be in a managerial role, just managing people, or otherwise just say that it's very tough to be an employee. But we're sure that that's not the case, right? Because but like the question we like to ask you is that what's the hardest part about being the boss?
Yeah, see, there are two kinds of bosses, right? If you're in a large company and you are a manager where you have people working for you and people you report into, right? You're kind of getting squeezed from both sides. So there's no hard or easy thing. It's more about setting expectations. If you are a CEO or a founder like me, where you're building your own business, it's worse because it's like a pressure cooker. Not only you have to have expectations with your team, but it also there's no pause button, right? So there is a fixed set of responsibilities when you are a boss in a big company, but in a startup you also have to look at whether the business will survive, whether you will have enough money in the next 12 to 18 months. So responsibilities are more and different, but in either ways it is about managing expectations, making your own contribution visible, and especially now the day in US with the AI thing, layoffs are so common, right? So you continuously have to find a way to prove yourself, right? But yeah, those are the things I would say from a leadership or being a boss that you should look at. No pause button. Yeah.
Okay. So say when you're hiring someone, what's the one quality that you look for that wouldn't be on a resume? Sort of like how Google tests for googliness, apart from just skills. What is one quality or one trait of character you look for in people?
See, in my current role and my prior role, my focus was to bring business to the company and grow it, right? And then generally in my current role, I have a co-founder who is focused on technology. So the people I hire or I work with every day are people who are essentially responsible for growth of the company. It's marketing, sales, pre-sales. So what I look for people is ownership. I'll ask them questions, and I'm looking at that person who will sort of, and I'm sure you have friends who will answer, ho jayega. If they don't give me that vibe, I generally will have less confidence in them successful in our current company, right? So if you don't have that approach, ownership, and if I give you some random things, if your core competency is to build a marketing campaign, but now you're supposed to find a lease for the office and buy furniture, and if you don't answer ho jayega, nahi hoga to yahan pe nahi hoga. That's my approach. Ownership.
So as you just shared that being a boss isn't very easy. You're constantly getting hounded for answers. It's not like you can just log out after 6 p.m. or after you get off work. It's a 24/7 job basically. So in such a scenario, and you obviously deal with it day to day as well. So how do you not burn out? How do you just stay productive every day and every week, every year, basically?
Yeah, it depends on people's overall personal life, right? It's not like 24/7 you're thinking about work. I think the key thing is it's okay to get burnt out and get frustrated, especially if you're early in your career. But as you evolve and you figure out what you like to do, you enjoy doing that. So in my case, uh, let's say I don't have to work because financially, maybe I'm in a position where even if I don't work, the basic things might be there. Still, if somebody gives the option on a Sunday, I'll do what I'm doing. So the only way to not get burnt out is to work. I think people have a misconception that if you take vacation, are you, what is that thing called? People say the downtime. According to me, that's all bullshit. You should enjoy what you do, and if you like what you're doing, you will not get burnt out. That's it. But if you try to do work-life balance, follow what others do, take 3 vacations in a year, but you don't like your core job every day in the morning, you're frustrated, you'll get burnt out, no matter how many breaks you're given. So in the early part of your career, get burnt out, get wasted, figure out what you like to do, and perhaps some people find it in 5 years, some people find it in 15. I was lucky to find it probably after 7, 8 years of my work or what I really want to do. Once you find that, just stick to that. Don't listen to anything, and you'll not get burnt out.
That's a great answer, sir. So passion is the key, I suppose.
I think passion is a waste of time. If you want to be
Okay.
a rock star, follow passion. According to me, habit, habit.
Have it.
Do same thing every day, and if you like it, you will enjoy that. It's more like how I see my father every day in the morning. He'll go for a walk.
Right.
Something like that. Something subtle. Something subtle. Problem with passion is there are highs and there are lows. So you have to be steady. So something little bit less subtle. Something like that.
Oh,
Problem with passion is you fall in love with it and then you sort of go all in. But it's not
right.
sustainable. You can't do it forever. So you have to find something that you like to do long term. Something like that. Yeah.
Moving on to the tech side of things, as if you know, right now, key everywhere. This is AI. Everyone's include all the big companies have to do some of the other thing with AI. We might think, okay, this wasn't really necessary, or maybe okay, this is something unique. What is your take on this? Is it actually a big deal, like how the internet was, or like the computer was, or is it just like hype created a big bubble of sort?
See, our business is solving some aspects of AI. So I definitely feel it's not a hype. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this problem. Now, I'll tell you what we are doing and then kind of relate to AI. But right now, this World Cup is going on, right? T20.
Yeah.
Everyone is focused from a performance perspective on people's skills. And I think to me, AI is like that fancy, I don't know, very innovative cricket bat, right? So if you have a very good skilled person and you give the best cricket bat to them, end of the day, it's a combination of human plus machine that makes things work, right? Something similar that in isolation, and again, my point of view is B2B companies that are using AI for solving business problems, right? I mean, I'm not getting into the whole broader AI governance and AGI kind of stuff, but will AI be replacing the number of people working in TCS? Will AI be creating new opportunities. Yes, those are things there. But end of the day, it's a human to machine combination, and you need both people to be skilled. I think the number of people required will go down, but the AI will also lead to creating new sort of activities, right? Like prompt engineers who didn't exist 2 years ago, but there is a new role of prompt engineers. Same thing 30 years ago, 40 years ago, a lot of professions didn't there, right? Like people do content creation, podcast, and live of that, right? So things like that. So new professions will get created, old professions will get wiped out. But overall, I think it's a positive thing. And it's a good thing. And the analogy I gave you, right? If AI is the cricket bat and the human is a skilled player, our business is making the cricket pitch ready. So our business is making sure if you want to do AI, you have the right data foundation in place. So you need all the three to make it happen, right? Because you can have the best equipment, the most skilled player, but if your pitch is wet or it's not playable, then there is no game. So that's kind of our business.
So it's more than just like a technological upgrade, or you can say like a structural change in the entire way things go. Which makes me wonder if someone is running a normal business who would be listening to us right now. For that business owner, what would be the first step to using or leveraging AI without having to require a massive investment? If you
See, one is it depends on the business type. Let's say they're a shopkeeper, then I don't think I can help them at all. But let's say they have a software, some business, right? Let's say they have invoicing, bookkeeping. So the frame of reference is a normal software is like an assistant. It makes you productive and efficient. AI is like a employee. Employee will not only tell you what to do, but will get it done. So if you are a pharma company, you are using AI software today for manufacturing, for drug distribution. Now the frame of reference is I can do this faster, better, cheaper. But now with AI, I can introduce a new class of people called agentic AI employees who will take action. Now I can do it with either less number of people, or I can free up my people to do something more strategic. So something like that. So they need to, a business person you mentioned has to have, first of all, have familiarity with software. They need to understand what software does, which is productivity. Then you have to think about what an employee does, which is human. Now they have to think, how can I make AI to be human and machine and take action? But if they are in a business where there is no software, then probably AI is not going to be helpful for them.
Fair enough. You mentioned agentic AI, like how we have ourselves have transitioned from just these normal AI tools or LLMs to these agentic bots who now perform any activity based on some predetermined stimuli rather than having to tell them every single instruction. What is agentic AI exactly according to you, and what's your take on it? And how could it where could it lead us?
No. Yeah, I think it's the same thing I was saying, right? Think about agentic AI as actual assistants who perform actions.
Yeah.
So in a large B2B company, there are a lot of these smart knowledge workers who are doing complex tasks like demand forecasting, price analysis, looking at different data and signals and making decisions. Now that decision at the rate that they made, and I still believe that it should be human in the loop, it cannot be done completely by AI. But if they can process 5 decisions, now they can do 50. So it's a way for some of these functions in a company that requires data, multiple analysis, insights to now use agentic AI to make it actionable. So you have to basically think about actions that can also be embedded in your activities from an AI perspective. That's agentic AI. Insights plus action. Yeah.
And as you said, we need a human in the loop. Not the AI alone can't do it. So what are these? Like, is it just that humans in the future would just be supervising AI, agentic AIs, the whatever task they're doing, whatever output they're producing, or are there certain skills or qualities that AI cannot replace, at least in the near future in any business? If you were to talk about that.
See, I stick to what I know from a B2B perspective. I'm not sure how other aspects of life will change, but I think so. I have a full self driving car here from Tesla. My son is 6 years old. When he's 16, when they are eligible for a driver's license, maybe he doesn't need it in 10 years. Maybe people won't need driver's license. Maybe people will not need. It'll be like having a pilot license. Very, 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 very small percentage of people drive a plane as a hobby. Same thing may happen to cars. 0.001% of the people will drive it. 99.99% will think of like how we get in an aircraft, right? So yeah, so there is no human required. Like especially in India, they have a lot of chauffeurs, right? So I don't know what happens to them long term, but there will be definitely some changes, I feel. But yeah, in an enterprise ecosystem, instincts and judgments and a lot of other things are required. So AI will become more of an enabler and a biggest productivity gain people can imagine. But the human element of building a business, coming up with ways to impact your employees, probably will still remain. Yeah. But yeah, definitely there are certain functions that I explained, which are not really in the true sense B2B, but probably out there from a consumer perspective. Just like people don't think of getting a pilot license, right, to fly. You just buy a ticket, right? Something like that may happen for cars and all, where you don't need people to drive.
So you mentioned that you are more involved towards the growth of the business. So would it be right to assume that you're not the tech person anymore? You're more like the people person, interacting with maybe clients, investors, and the other stakeholders. So how do you explain what you do for a living to someone that's a layman or someone that's not in tech anymore or someone just a regular person basically? Like, what's that one line you always use that makes them go, okay, I get what you're doing now?
It's a good question. Um, See, one caveat before I give that perspective is, first of all, I think this goes back to one of the productivity things, right? You only talk to what you do with people who will buy from you. Don't waste time by telling people what you do. That's my kind of approach in life, right? I don't need to if my neighbor is not a person who will buy from me, he may not really, I may not want to share what I do with him, right? So trying to explain what I do essentially happens when I know enough about that person. Because what I do, my personal approach is I personalize it for the actual people. And for them, the outcome has to be some sort of a project or opportunity or a solution that they will give it to me, right? So I don't, essentially, I don't blindly pitch things to people. I don't waste their time by telling things what I do because I don't know specific details of what they want to solve, right? So the first thing about sales is Don't open your mouth if you don't know the pain point. And if you open your mouth, tie their current pain point to your product or service. So without knowing about a problem, I rather don't pitch it. But I think to answer your question, if I have to explain my son or my father what I do, I'll say that मैं data साफ करता हूँ, so AI doesn't act stupid. So my job is to clean up data, build a data foundation. So in an enterprise company, AI is accurate. That is kind of what I do in a very small nutshell.
So you just explained it to me like I was 6. Okay.
But if
So-
you were a 40-year-old executive who had a different job title with a ability to buy from me, probably I will talk about your company and how it will help you, right? You have to make it personal. Never make a pitch generic. Make it personal.
So, as you mentioned, you clean data, so the AI doesn't make stupid mistakes. You are also into B2B basically. So, you must have a very diverse clientele, I assume. So it could be players from very regulated industries such as finance or maybe healthcare. And you might also have some non-standard players and not as heavily regulated, such as some SaaS like software startups. So how do you go about building, or how do you go about differentiating between them from a technical perspective?
Yeah, I see the last question, that technical thing is sort of so when you're building a solution, right? You have to break it up into two components: the horizontal component and the vertical component. The horizontal component stays the same, whether you're a SaaS company, healthcare company, or a banking company. The data foundation, which is what we do, is we look at data quality, we look at your unstructured data, we come up with data readiness, and then we tie up to a broader AI initiative. So if you're trying to build agents, we will come and help you to fix your data, improve the quality, and ensure that we have the right grounding, validation, confidence in place so your AI goes in production. What changes from industry to industry is not the horizontal, but the nature of the data. So if I'm pitching it to a bank and I have sensitive data because they have PII regulation, if I'm pitching it to healthcare, they have PHI regulation, then I'll start with that. But I will focus on my horizontal solution and change the nature of what they need based on their industry vertical. So the industry vertical already has predetermined caveats of how they classify data, what are the business rules, how they look at data. We just inherit that and then we sort of work with them to make it happen.
Okay, so you're saying that the foundation for what kind of data they require, or rather the platform, is provided by them, and you just inherit and work on that, if my understanding is correct.
Not really. What I meant is the horizontal components of making data ready for AI remains the same, irrespective of industry. But the way you handle the data is what changes industry to industry. That's it.
So then, when it comes to like actual deployment or production, how do you measure the actual accuracy or the ROI of an agent once it finally goes live after it?
See, there are generally two ways to do it, right? One is the financial benefit, and the other is the actual accuracy of it, right? The best practice is to define the metrics ahead of time. And then, let's say you want to reduce the number of support tickets. So instead of humans handling it, 80% is handled by AI. So that will be my success criteria that I will measure against. So the outcome that the agent has been built for is what you have to measure. That's your ROI. And second, obviously, is if you're using the right grounding, the right validation, the right confidence score, the accuracy is very important. If you have these two, that will lead to adoption. If the adoption is there, then your essentially agent is successful.
Okay, so within the various kinds of agents you might even have autonomous agents, and you mentioned that it's necessary to keep humans in the loop. So, what kind of guardrails, or you can say a preventive measure to prevent them from doing the wrong things, or going off the rails? Like, how do you prevent that? If you could explain with an example. Or...
Yeah, so hallucination is a big issue in enterprises, and that happens because of lack of data. So if you were to take a standard chat GPT, use OpenAI keys, and then deploy it in your customer environment, the accuracy will be pretty low. So there are essentially ways you can add context. So the way you add context is you essentially can approach it through a retrieval augmented generation architecture where you have a RAG. So if you are actually asking LLM to perform an action or give you some insights, rather than looking at the context that it has based on its current weights and setup, it will also add, it will increase the context window and add essentially your company's information. For that to happen, you need the right metadata, the right lineage. So we as a company essentially focus on that. Our company's focus is, can we build the right data foundation so hallucination is reduced and it's minimal and is accurate. For that to happen, you need to understand the lineage of your data, you need to catalog your data, you need to essentially bring both your structured and unstructured data under the same governance. And if you follow that data foundation, the way I think about AI is it's the last mile, and it's probably more like icing on the cake. The cake is the data for a company.
So then you mentioned that it basically you increase the context window and input the metadata or the data related to the company within that, and then make it give an output or the desired results which you want. So how do you make sure that your systems are secure enough that this context injection or this metadata injection is not hijacked during the process?
No, this is not done in isolation, right? So most of the companies we work with, they have two separate teams. They have a security team, and then they have a AI governance team. So what we are doing is not something new. 10 years ago, there was a big wave, and I'm sure it doesn't matter what size of the company, but everybody started looking at cloud. The three big cloud providers, GCP, AWS, and Microsoft, are now also the biggest AI providers. So the focus is using your existing cloud infrastructure security. Whatever guardrails you have put to secure your cloud, you inherit that. You don't reinvent the wheel. And using the same level of guardrails within your own environment, in your secured cloud infrastructure, you are now deploying AI agents. So that way, a lot of the simple things, right? Role-based access, user authentication, is this person supposed to see this? All that is not AI's problem. It is essentially now tied to your existing infrastructure. So you first of all do that. And then second is obviously what I mentioned, right? You have a governance team. You focus on the governance of AI. So you make sure that the response is accurate. So you define some sort of a governance policy that is done, let's say, by your legal team. And then that becomes a playbook or a benchmark. So you can even put it in your LLMs as a meta prompt to say that whatever, don't use certain words, or here is a protocol when you're responding, here is the tone and all that. So you can make those changes based on the corporate policy. But yeah, our rule of thumb is don't try to reinvent the wheel. Use the existing cloud infrastructure, use the existing security infrastructure, the investments, the guardrails people have come in for AI, and it's generally the same. because the three biggest cloud providers are also the three biggest infrastructure providers for enterprise AI.
So again, you mentioned governance. So as we see it, we hear news every day. As It's like a fragmented race, right? Every union or every country in the world is racing to develop regulations, certain compliances that companies using AI must follow, especially with healthcare. If you look at HIPAA, so in such a case, what happens is that you have to stay very up to date with all the current laws and all the regulations which are being put into place or are being practiced. So, like, how do you ensure that whatever you build is always up to date in the same sense or the same regard?
See, it's like this, right? I think Elon Musk was asked, will you share data about your users with governments? And the answer he gave was, he'll follow local laws. So, to me, we are not here to define the laws. We are here to follow the laws. How the laws are made is probably not my problem, and I don't care. Generally, privacy laws are enforced both in the US and Europe, and there are mechanisms to do that. Sometimes they'll give you a window in terms of how long it takes to be compliant. Some cases people will say it is impacting innovation. In some cases, people will say that these are required. So the best way is you decouple AI from regulation. You think about regulation simply as a license to do business. And it could be AI, it could be software, it could be a car. If I have to put a car on a road in US, there are certain height dimensions that I have to follow, right? But can I make a car outside of that? Yes. But I don't have the legal authority to drive the car. Same thing. That when you're thinking about innovation, focus on innovation. Don't mix it with regulation. Regulations are meant to be adapted and edited based on newer things that come out. And all you can do is essentially follow the current regulation that is available to it. If it is not written in law, then to me, it doesn't exist. So if it is a theory, if somebody is recommending certain things, whether it is morally correct or wrong, is not something I want to solve. For me, whatever is the local laws that are put in force, that is what we follow. And that I think those are easily publicly available. And there are a lot of frameworks out there. And there are a lot of audit companies who will come and say that, okay, is your AI compliant with this regulation? So as part of the AI governance that I was telling you right earlier, you leave it to the customers to do that audit. So the person who is buying is on the hook, not the person who was selling. So you say, I am compliant, but I would encourage you to use your governance team to make sure we are compliant as per your regulations, and let them define those regulations.
So, I mean, enough with the technical part. Now, what we'd like to know is more about your early journey. So, I'm sure that you must have started out as just a cog in the wheel, right? Like just doing maybe grunt work or maybe some other kind of work and not always at the executive role. So we see even in our daily lives that not many people go out and start a business or go out and do a startup or go to do an executive level job. Most people, especially those within government jobs, they just work as an employee all their life. So what was like your light bulb moment that you thought, okay, I've had enough of this. I want to start my own business or I want to start my own company?
I think, as I was saying, I like to do experiments. I really didn't have any light bulb moment. For me, and I think it's not like unique to anyone else, right? I'm kind of digressing, but I have some friends right now. All of us are in the early 40s, right? We came all to the US 20 years ago. If you stayed in your current job, and let's say you stayed in one or two companies, right? and let's say you did really well. Uh, it's a good career. I think financially it's not that different. I think if you like what you're doing and you're productive, I think you just stick to it. You shouldn't get into entrepreneurship or starting your own business because somebody else uh, is telling you to do. So that's kind of my point of view. I think there are different ways to uh, be productive, to enjoy what you're doing. I just happen to like what I do. And personally, I realized something very interesting. Uh, I transitioned from being a programmer to a project manager to a engagement manager, even eventually to a client partner. And here the culture in the US is once you become a client facing, they call it client partners, account managers, or sometimes even sales, you're generally given 6 months, sometimes a year. If you hit your numbers, you get a job, otherwise anyways you're thrown out. And if you do, you get a certain percentage. You make a lot more money than, let's say, a programmer, but chance of you losing your job is also pretty high. So I kind of did some calculation in my head that if I do well, the upside is with the company. If I don't do well, anyways, I'll be fired within a year. So why not I do something of my own where I get all the upside? Downside is the same way. I'll anyways get fired, or anyways I have to close the company. So it's very easy for me because I was sort of in that professional, high growth, high risk, high reward kind of a role. But if somebody is a software developer, right, and they have amazing ideas, and their current company is stifling them and saying don't do it, but they enjoy it, and that is a kind of real deep calling. I think you have to experiment and give that opportunity and make it happen, right? So everyone has their own reasons. I think for me it was more practical and more tied to the fact that I like experimenting.
So it's just you messed around and you found out basically. So you probably accumulated a lot of experience with your experiments or with whatever ventures you went into. So basis of all those experience and even exiting at $75 million, what's one thing that you're doing different with Datacolor compared to just not repeating the same mistake, or just one thing you are making sure that basis of your experience you want to do differently because of what you learned the first time?
So in your first company, you learn by doing mistakes. In your second company, you also make mistakes. The only difference is now you sort of adapt faster. We started the first journey with my other partners in 2016. The second journey we started in 2025, 9 years later. So a lot of things have changed in the last decade, right? So some of it is relevant, like how you deal with people, how you deal with personalities, but a lot of things in terms of client pain points, what value you bring to the table, why should they decide to work with you versus someone else is actually new. So in the second company, the only difference is I know how to, or rather, I'm looking forward to making mistakes faster. So failing fast and then doing something new, then trying to keep that mistake in the company. That's the only difference. But I would say 30%, 40% is similar, but the framework structure may be relevant to what I did in the first one. But second one, it's after 9 to 10 years, right? So it's a lot of new things also.
So among like your plethora of experience, even as an you even have experience as an investor. So what's that one thing that just makes you go, yes, this is the guy to maybe, or this is the next big thing to a founder or to a venture?
See, those things look good on Shark Tank or some bullshit. What do you call? There's no next big thing. See, everything can be made in terms of the growth, right? So, see, there has to be some basic things, which is, are you growing in a growing market or not, right? So you do a TAM analysis and look at uh, if I have to build a business in this area, is this growing year on year or shrinking? Second thing is what I call founder market fit. So if you are a founder, so I built my professional career working for B2B companies and then starting my own company that was working with other B2B companies. Uh, I prefer to stick to my lane. If somebody is very familiar with, they have to have some inside information on some consumer trend. I think that is very important, right? So the key thing is to look for some unfair advantage or knowledge that you have and have a founder market fit. And second is definitely uh, some level of what I call the market has to grow, right? It's very difficult to build a business in a shrinking market. But apart from that, I think there are so many opportunities. It's very individual and very specific to what people want to do, right? Yeah. But yeah, I think there's no such thing like big or small opportunity. Everything can be big or small based on how people approach it.
Okay. Uh, so that was quite insightful, sir. Uh, as a like even when you started your first startup, or like anyone for that matter, you've seen other founders. Could you tell us like the one specific mistake that each of these new founders make, or like or are bound to make, if they're new to the game, or something that you maybe even you have done in your first business that you launched?
Yeah, it's a classic case where people are building things before confirming the problem exists. So you work for a very large company like Google and you build a product and you know exactly how to solve that problem. But now you want to start your own company. Either you don't have access to those people or you don't know whether the solution has a value. So you don't try to build things before at least confirming that problem has to be solved. And then, yeah, a lot of people, I don't say they lack confidence, but see, confidence doesn't come overnight, right? So some people will say, I'll build a very good website, I'll build a very good product. Only when I have everything in place, he'll give me confidence. According to me, action comes first. Action gives you confidence. So act on it as you talk to people. I think in Silicon Valley, people talk about vaporware, right? I built my entire professional career. I was in Bay Area for almost 15 years, right? We just moved to Texas a couple of years ago, right? So the Silicon Valley thing is okay to fail, okay to make mistakes. I also feel the same, right? That you focus on trying to act, be biased towards action, and automatically the confidence will come before you start building any solutions.
And being a second time founder, what is it like you like to run a company now, based on like compared to the first time? Is it like you'd say much easier, you have much easier time to deal with these challenges since you're more experienced, or would you say there's more pressure on you given you are an experienced personnel who already has built a successful business, so more people rely on you in that sense?
See, I think you have to take advantage of what you have, right? So definitely prior to now, I have a little more credibility. So it's easier for me to convince customers, employees to join me. So you have to use that. But because it's like whatever, it's a separate decade. It's a completely separate pain point we are solving. you also need to be open to suggestions. I think a lot of times, because people think, and this is true in job also, right? That when I was in this company, I had this framework, I had this team, and this worked for me. I'm going to replicate the same thing in the new role, new company. If you have that approach, you're sort of setting yourself for failure. So, yeah, in my case, what I personally feel is, yeah, the feedback thing is very important. You have the ability to take feedback, and you should never lose that, whether it's your first, second, third company, and you try and learn continuously. That helps you. But definitely, if somebody is on their second or third journey, uh, there is some credibility that you can leverage. And there is definitely a little bit of pressure, because now people sort of feel that there is some prior track record and all that. So you also have to be honest, and if there is some challenges, you have to share those things, because people will think that, oh, uh, if somebody is doing it for the second time, he or she sort of will figure it out, right? So if you can't, you should be transparent and share that, right? So yeah, I feel there are some pros and cons, and but you approach it almost like a new journey. That's the kind of the model.
Right. As a founder, and maybe even as you working in the stand-up or Salesforce, obviously your entire career obviously won't be just high. There might have been some failures along the way as well. What was your attitude towards these failures that helped you come out even stronger? Like what was your first plan of action if something went wrong?
I think you evolve over time, right? The way I would react when I was in my first job um, to now will be a little different, but I think the basic framework is, and it is more personal than professional, is um, you don't take things very seriously, especially you have to have a sense of humor, right? So let's say somebody is fired, or somebody did get promoted. These are maybe failures, but end of the day, not everybody can control their destiny, right? So to me, I over time, right, it kind of did come to me naturally, but over time, I tried to focus on the best next course of action. Whenever you are met with some obstacle, uh, all you can do is give your best based on the knowledge you have, and don't take things personally when things don't go your way, and even if they go your way, don't try to sort of claim that as your own victory, right? In all the success also, your team partners plays a big role, and when you're a failure also, it's sort of a collective failure, right? That's how you should think about it, right? Like, you're laid off, if you lose a customer, if an employee resigns in 3 months saying they didn't like the environment, you reflect on it, but then you move on. But you don't take things too seriously. Maybe, I'm just giving an example. The person quit not because of you, because maybe he had something else going on out of your control at his home. Right? We don't know.
Right. So, okay. I wanted to ask you, Ki, as you said prior, you have been the CEO, the COO, and as well as a GM at like a massive firm like Brillo. Uh, which one of these roles, personally to you, have felt natural? Ki, okay, if I were to do something, I'd do this for the rest of my life. Like obviously, if you didn't plan to become a founder yourself, and what would you say would be the hardest role to fulfill in terms of like if you were to talk about your perspective?
Yeah. See, whatever. Nothing like running your own company. See, these CEOs, GMs, these are titles, right? But end of the day, uh, if you remember, I talked about what I look for people, which is that ho jayega attitude. So for me, uh, the best thing I like to do, leaving aside the title, you are given a problem, people tell you what to do, and then I figure out a way to do it. I like that approach. Like करके दिखाएंगे, right? Now, it's possible, or these sort of unknown problems happen mostly when you're a CEO, because there's a lot of uncertainty. Whereas in some cases, let's say, if you are managing a large team and you're focused on operations and whatever, you're a COO, uh, maybe the uncertainty level is less, right? Uh, as long as I like, or rather, as long as there is uncertainty in my job and I wake up not knowing fully how the day will go, probably I like that role. And if the title is CEO, maybe that is what I will enjoy doing.
So you've just shared your experience and how you have been every role, or you have put on every hat that the corporate world has to, almost every hat that the corporate world has to offer, and you have played in that role. So from very early on in your career, you must have had a definition of success, right? So maybe getting promoted, or maybe reaching the next position. So for, say, for a software developer, the next level, like L1 or L2. So how has your definition of success changed compared to then and now?
Success, yeah, absolutely, right? As I said, when you are growing up and you transition with the definition given by your parents to your friends and peers, yeah, I think when you are naive and you're in your first job, people will definitely look at success as whatever the salary you make, and then maybe as they grow up, they look at I don't know, if you have a bigger house. Yeah, for me, I think what has happened is I look uh, up to people, and I personally also aspire to have that impact, not just in the company I work for, but in the broader ecosystem. So to me, a successful person is somebody who is giving more to the ecosystem than taking. So we run a non-profit here in Texas called Funda, where essentially if you're Indian origin founder, we help you. I think the person who started that community in Silicon Valley, I think I found him very successful. Maybe he's not very rich, but things like that, right? So, yeah, I think the evolution of success depends on your ability to influence the ecosystem beyond your current role or current company. And if you're continuously able to do that, and people look up to you, and then there's a positive impact created, that is, I think, a good, successful approach.
Like, to address all these students or all the youngsters that might be watching this podcast, what would you say that is one thing or one skill that they should learn, both technically as well as a skill that they should incorporate into themselves, maybe in a mental manner, like some kind of mental model for thinking or something else, so that they go on to have a very successful, or rather a very fulfilling, if you may call it, a fulfilling life or career?
Yeah, I think on the technology side, the key thing is to sort of see. When I started as a programmer, right, I was lucky to have some good mentors, and I realized, and now I think it's even easier. Writing code or program is fairly easy, and in fact, now with vibe coding and Replit and Cursor, anyone can write program, right? Uh, when you start your career in technology, I think the biggest skill you should look at is identify corner cases and asking the why. So if you want to be successful and have a fulfilling life, you should know what is the impact of the program or the code or the project, and ask those questions. You don't have the answer. Maybe your team lead doesn't have the answer, but somebody in the company who's paying will have the answer. So the faster people get into that habit of what is the impact of this module, why am I doing this, why is this authentication required, I think that is very important. One is it will help you to be a better programmer, software engineer, also, and also it will give you that mental model to eventually figure out what you want to do. And I think it is very rare or probably not reasonable to expect somebody out of college to exactly know what they want to do. But hopefully in 5-10 years they will know. Uh, in my case, it was more a process of elimination. I tried to do multiple things. It didn't work out. Eventually, I liked what I was doing. Right, so something like that. I think that is very important from a technology perspective. Like, why are you doing it? What is the impact of that? Having that insight is very helpful. And the other thing you asked about skill, right? Non-technology skill. I think the skill is definitely being open to experimenting, uh, not listening to your peers. See, the typical, at least our engineering mindset was do a BE, come here for masters, become a tech lead, do MBA, be a product manager. At least, luckily, after the masters, I realized that all that advice people gave, they themselves have no clue. So, luckily, the final two things, I won't say wasted my time. Some people maybe get value, but I didn't get into that whole uh, loop of MBA, product management nonsense. I realized that I've listened enough to come here. I have to listen to myself. I have to listen to what I do. So you have to eventually figure out for yourself what you like to do. And I think for some people, following that path may be an amazing outcome. I have nothing against people who become product managers or go into MBA. Luckily for me, I sort of saved myself and found out what I like to do. And definitely it was not that.
So, an inquisitive mindset and following your gut, is that what you would give as an advice?
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, not like being stupid, right? You have to make data-driven decisions and all. But yeah,
Any rational and reasonable extent.
yeah, exactly.
So, finally, to end this, sir, thank you very much for your valuable time. I'm sure your insights and perspectives will be very inspirational in a sense to the students that are watching. And hopefully, more people end up experimenting and finding out what they want to do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Don't take yourself seriously. Have a sense of humor. Things will work out most of the time. That's how I would suggest people. Even if you don't meet your current goals, it's okay. All right.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
All right. Okay. Harshal, Vedant, Rakshak, Aryan, take it. Bye.
Thank you, sir.